All right. We've been talking about religions in Southeast Asia. Particularly, we've done Buddhism and Hinduism so far. Today, I want to move into the next section and talk about Shintoism. It's one that most of us have probably never heard of, right? Anybody ever heard of Shintoism?
I've heard of Shin.
Shintoism is a native religion of Japan. Unlike its other neighbors around it, Buddhism and Hinduism, it really hasn't spread anywhere. It's still almost exclusively in Japan. Write it down, please. Almost exclusively in Japan.
I'm okay.
It was the official state religion of Japan until very, very recently. Post-World War II is when it kind of fell out of favor as an official state religion. That having been said, it's still widely used with the native peoples. Part of the reason why it kind of fell out of favor with the state is Shintoism as a religion was the religion of the Empire of Japan that went to war against the whole world in World War II. Okay? While Shintoism is not a warlike religion, a lot of warriors do practice it. Okay? I'll give you a second to get it all caught up, written down, and we'll move on. You can shorten this stuff so it makes sense to you, as long as you get the gist of it. Hi, darling.
Now
I know. But it's Friday, so you get to go home here a couple days.
I'm glad I don't think I could make it to school. We didn't have any.
Next week's gonna be tough. We gotta go a full 5 days.
it really is. I was thinking about it this
We
morning.
hadn't been at school 5 days in a row since like
It actually started.
the 1st of December.
That's good though, Mr. Albert.
I wish we could have Fridays off.
You wish we could have every day off.
Maybe I could have said maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, get a Friday off or something. Like if we had to go the full week.
Like Central does,
I think they get every
Week.
See, I think we should come to school 10 hours a day, but only come to school 4 days a week.
10 hours a day.
or we could come.
That'd be 7 to 5.
I got a
Add
better
an
idea.
extra hour to the day. And
Yeah, but only 4 days.
only come 4 days, I'd be okay with that.
As long as you don't have more than 8 classes.
Well, y'all would have
Everybody
to
got
stay in Miss Dixon's for a really long
I think I'd
time.
rather switch it
No,
up.
I don't have
that's
the days
two
off.
classes
5 days
we
off,
don't go
2
to.
days of school.
Yeah, but to get your hours, that would mean that you have to go to school for 20 hours a day.
We can change the hours. We can.
Just come to school for 20 hours on Saturday, 20 hours on Sunday, and be done.
Exactly, that's school for the rest of the year.
You can go. I'll just get the later.
All right, so here's a term that you've heard, but you probably don't know you've heard. Kami. Anybody ever heard that term kami before?
Yes.
Kami, besides the program on your computer, Kami is a traditional Japanese god, I guess is the best way to see it. They believe that everything has a god. It's a very animistic belief that the gods reside in the mountains and the trees and just it resides in everything. As a result, they're going to be a very spiritual people when it comes to nature. Very much about preserving nature in a lot of ways. They're going to build these Shinto shrines that are almost always all natural materials because that's important to them. Now I mentioned that I think you've heard the name Kami before. but you haven't heard it in this form. But you have probably heard of something called a kamikaze.
Yeah.
Kamikaze were the pilots in World War II, the Japanese pilots that would make suicide attacks. They were very, very feared. They were dangerous pilots. And kamikaze, kami means God, and kaze means like wind, so or storm. So the thought was they were coming in like storm gods or wind gods. A kamikaze is a hurricane kind of thing. Okay, so kami is it's a really big concept in this religion, and they're very much about individual gods. Families would have their own gods. Towns would have their own gods, and you'd have a little shrine set up in your home with this. So it's an interesting little religion. They don't have specific gods. They have these idea that gods are in everything. Again, it goes back to this idea, if you're a Star Wars fan, we talk about this in Hinduism and Buddhism, well, it's here too. The Force in Star Wars was based on these ideas of that there's a God spirit in everything. If that helps you understand. Huh?
They have a ride called that at the Forest Festival.
Do they? Everybody got this?
No.
Everybody smart got this?
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. You're at least a little smart.
Mr. Evans, did I show you the pictures of when I went to San Antonio?
No. You good, Kinsey?
All right.
Oh, you're typing it.
So this is the most holy spot in Shintoism, Mount Fuji. It's the highest mountain in Japan. And they believe that the most powerful of the gods is here at Mount Fuji. And again, we've seen this in other religions. I like to try and find commonalities so we can understand things. And we've mentioned before that there's this idea somewhere in us. It seems to be ingrained in the human condition that God is up. Okay? Think about it. Pyramids built up to God. Ziggurats built up to God. Even most modern churches have a big temple, or a big steeple on top, right? The Greeks with Mount Olympus, well, the Japanese, Mount Fuji. There's this idea that God is up, okay? And it seems to help everywhere. So I mentioned they built these shrines. One of the things the shrines that they build, the most common type of shrine, are shrines to your ancestors. They are very much into what we call ancestor veneration. The belief that if you have good ancestors that lived according to rules and were successful, that they could become kami after death, and you would have a shrine where you could pray to your ancestor. Pray may not be the right word, but ask advice or give honor to them. Shintoism has a lot of rituals. There are specific ways that you approach the shrine. What do you do when you get there? And you go to different shrines for different things. One of the most popular shrines in the modern era in Japan that's terrified some people is that they have a shrine to all of the people that died fighting for the empire in World War II. And that's increasing Japanese nationalism, and that's terrifying some people. Because traditionally Japan, when Japanese have high nationalism, they start looking at their neighbors and end up getting in wars. Interestingly enough, it's not a religion in the sense that others are, as there's no sense of morality in this religion. There's not rules that not like a Ten Commandments kind of thing. So people could be Shinto and another religion. It's not at all uncommon in Japan for somebody to say, I'm a practitioner of Shinto and Buddhism, or Shinto and Hinduism, Shinto and Christianity even. And you could have a Christian church with a Shinto shrine in it. It's a strange kind of concept to us in the West. To me, this is more like a philosophy than a religion, but it is a belief system anyway. I like this idea of having an altar at home where you can talk to your ancestors. That's kind of cool. This is an example of a Shinto shrine. These are the torii gates as you enter. And they almost always have, Shinto shrine will almost always have a gate like this as you're entering it. And it's kind of like this is the doorway that separates this world from the other world. And you'll see this a lot in Japanese architecture. We still see this a lot around the world. Y'all have all seen things like this in different places. If you've been to a Japanese restaurant, they almost always have one of these as you're entering the building. Yeah,
What's that at the bottom?
it's just another part of the shrine. The gate.
If you like anime, you know.
No, if you've seen Cobra Kai, it's in there a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yes, it is.
All right, so there's no single God, there's no single text in Shintoism, so it's not, they don't have a Vishnu and a Krishna and a Shiva, and they don't have Brahma, they don't have Yahweh or Allah, none of that stuff. They just have all these kami that are interfering. And their kami sometimes can be kind of mischievous too. They're not necessarily always good, they're just always powerful, okay? And they believe following these rituals will connect them with their past. It'll connect them with nature and the greatness of Japan. Very nativist religion. I like this last part where they're expected to respect and honor life and nature. Sometimes nature at the expense of humanity. Seems like it'd be a pretty easy religion to practice. No single God, no primary text, no rules of morality. Do these rituals, hang out in nature, everything's cool. I could get into that.
David.
He has this very offended look on his face right now. Everybody got it?
Jaden, I think you need to do what you say.
Physical purity, they would call it cleanliness, is more important than morality. What that means is, it is more important that you follow these steps and do everything you're supposed to do than it is necessarily to be good. That can be dangerous. First bullet's the most important one. You just want to get that one. The other two we've already talked about. So they have these rituals that cleanse things, and that's very similar to like what you see in Islam, where you had to wash your hands and your face before you would pray. Well, they have these cleanliness rituals. You don't enter a temple if you're unclean.
Mr. Albert, what religion or whatever you call it, is it like when you're coming out of the church, they dip your finger in water and like,
Is it a
That's
Catholic?
Catholic.
well, when my roommate died, I went in there and it scared me because I never had to do it. And they just were touching me with water.
You know what, out of Kingston, Elijah, do you remember going, you weren't there for that part. Okay, so we went to Kingston, and it was hosted at a Catholic church, cause you know they have to do all the training and
Yeah.
everything for them. And on the way out, they had like this big old fountain looking thing, it was a big bowl of water. And people were sticking their hands in it, and I was just so confused, I was like, what are they
Yeah,
doing?
it's holy water,
And as they walked out, they were putting it on them, and I was like, oh.
holy water, yeah. You ever go to a full Catholic wedding with all, a lot of them are short now, but a full Catholic service or Catholic wedding, you can lose weight doing it, because you're doing so much calisthenics standing up and sitting down the whole time, it's crazy.
Like, you're.
I love it.
Oh my God.
I'm not Catholic, but I like the ceremonies.
Have you ever been to, like, in a church where someone you knew was cremated?
No.
They were throwing his ashes all over everybody. People
Well,
talking.
here is an example of a Shinto shrine.
Oh, wow.
A Shinto shrine. Again, everything in this is natural. It's all about nature. Doesn't have a lot of extraneous stuff. Kind of amazing looking. This is a kind of typical example of Japanese architecture for the time period too. Y'all like that?
What else we got?
Kind of cool.
I need one.
Makes me hungry. I want to go eat now. Go to the restaurant. All right, we will pick up with Confucianism next time.
Mr. Alvarez, you.
How many questions
Why
was
does
that
it your
quiz?
A lot.
Where?
93.
Okay,
All right.